Reminder of where we're at in the morning meetings. Ultimate worship. What does it look like to worship God? And what does it look like to worship God in our sports as sports people? Bangy, remind us, you were here this morning, remind us what we looked at yesterday, what you helped us to understand yesterday.
Yep, yesterday we looked at the first part of the verse in Romans 12, verse 1, about therefore in view of God's mercy. And we looked at remembering God's mercy, how that is so important to then helping us to be motivated by God's mercy in every area of our lives. So it's all about God's mercy.
Good. So there's your starting point. There's where Paul begins. Remember God's mercy, be motivated by God's mercy. That's where we've got to start with. Then this morning, get your badges. It'll be on the screen as well. Here's where we're going with the next part of verse 1 this morning. Bangy, could you read that out to us, where we're going this morning?
Offer your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy and pleasing to God.
Good. There's where we're going. One sentence. That's what we're looking at this morning. Two things we're going to take away from that this morning. Here's the first. Offer your bodies. Offer your bodies. Paul says, give all of yourself. So to try and understand this a bit more for what this looks like, turn to the person next to you and have a chat. Who do you think in sport gives all of themselves, just gives everything to their sport? Might be your sport that you play, might be a sport you've seen. Who do you think of when you think of who gives everything to sport? Go, you've got 30 seconds. Okay. Wonder who you've chatted about, wonder who you mentioned. I'm going to ask Bangy, for you, who in sport do you see as giving everything to their sport?
Well, I'm a Liverpool fan, and so I watch a lot of their games. And for me, it has to be Steven Gerrard. He just epitomises for me someone who gives everything he's got all the time for the cause.
Good. Stevie G might have been a popular choice. I know we've got a few Liverpool fans in Team Tonga. Wouldn't be surprised if they said the same thing. Stevie G just gives everything. Here's my answer. Here's for me. A bit different. It's not my sport, but I saw it this summer. Tour de France. Anyone see any of the cycling this summer? Started here. Here's a picture of Alberto Contador, one of the favourites to win the whole race. Had a massive crash in one of the stages. Early stages. Still 100 kilometres to go in the race. There you see, top left, bandaged knee, smashed his knee, got back on his bike, helped back on his bike, cycled for another 20 kilometres to try and catch up the front runners, and just decided it was too much, couldn't do it. Went away, got an x-ray, turned out he'd broken his leg. He'd broken his leg, yet still got on his bike because he wanted to give it everything. And it seems to happen in Tour de France, in the cycling all the time. Last year, a guy called Geraint Thomas, he in fact broke his pelvis in the first stage of the Tour de France and cycled the whole race, the whole of the tour. That's over 2,000 miles he cycled with a broken pelvis the whole way. That's decent. That's giving their all to their sport. I often think, hey, we'll think about it for our own sports. There'll be people in our sport who we can see as just giving everything to their sport. And it's kind of similar to what Paul is saying here for us. As Christians, what does worship look like? Paul says, offer your bodies. Paul says, give all of yourself. Give all of yourself. And that is, your bodies, when Paul says your bodies, that means your whole entirety. So it's not just your physical bodies, what you do, but it's everything. It's your mind. What do you think about? It's your words. What are the words that you say? Did you know that the average man says about 9,000 words every single day? The average woman says about 20,000 words every single day. Paul says, offer your words. Give your words over to God. And it's your bodies. Are you going to give everything you are to God? Bang it. I remember hearing a story that really helped me understand this. There was a boy who was at church, and the sermon was on giving. And the sermon had finished, and maybe this happens in your church. The sermon had finished, and then they took the offering. They passed the offering plate, a bit like this one. It's more of a basket.
Massive, isn't it?
Well, they're hoping people will give quite a bit. But they'll pass like a plate or a bag in the hope that people will just throw a few bit of spare change in. And as the bag was being passed around, the boy sat there and he goes into his pockets and he pulls out a handkerchief. He thinks, shouldn't probably offer that. Pulls out just a few coppers. Think it's not good enough. Pulls out a bit of chewing gum. He's just like, what can I give? The offering bowl came to him. He stopped for a moment. He looked down at the bowl. Then he put it on the floor. He's got up and he just stepped into it. See what he's done? See what he's understood? What can I offer? What can I give? Bit of money? Great. Give myself. Can I offer my whole self? And this is what Paul is saying here. Offer your bodies. Give everything you are to God. Offer your bodies.
That's incredible, Woods, isn't it? It's about giving my words, my actions, my thoughts, my feet, every single part of me to God all the time. Is that it?
Exactly. Offer your whole entirety to God. Like the players in sport that we talked about earlier, just giving everything, leaving nothing out on the field, giving everything to God. Here Paul says, give everything. Offer all that you are.
Give all to yourself. Okay. So what's the second thing that you want us to know?
Good. There's the first part. Offer your bodies. Let's move on. Offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. Offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. Paul is saying, give all of yourself, all of the time. Now, sacrifice is a bit of an old word, bit of a weird word. We don't use it that often. If you look in the Bible, especially in the first half, in the Old Testament, you'll see sacrifice talked about a lot. And you'll see that the people of Israel would give a sacrifice. Often it would be an animal, a dead animal that they'd give to God as an offering, as giving over to God. Mm-hmm. And you talked about yesterday, Bangy, when you see Jesus being that sacrifice, being killed for us. Mm-hmm. Paul says, be a sacrifice. But here's the difference. He doesn't say kill yourself, be a sacrifice dead to God. Be a living sacrifice. Every single minute of every single day, for as long as you are living, for as long as air is going through my body, give yourself to God. Paul says, offer all of yourself, all of the time. You see, God is so interested in your life. God is so interested in every area and aspect of your life. There's no part of your life, 24/7, that he's more interested in or less interested in. Every single area, he's interested. And Paul says, give it all over to him. Bangy, wherever you go, whatever you're doing, out on the footy pitch, later, give it all to him, he says.
Wow. Okay. So you've started to talk a bit about what that means, perhaps for me, giving all your entirety of your whole self to God. But what does that really mean? Give us more. What does that really mean for all of us here in our sport or in our lives?
Good. So let's get really specific for us, sports people, Sports Plus 2014. What does that mean for me then? As I'm running out there, as I'm in the changing room, getting ready, getting my shirt on, getting my boots on, what does that mean for me then? God is so interested in your sport. When you're going out there to train, to warm up, to run, to compete, God is so interested in your sport. What does that look like then? Well, let's take those three areas we mentioned earlier. Remember your mind, your thoughts. Apparently, we have around 50,000 thoughts every single day. How are you going to use your thoughts? What are you going to think about? Maybe in tennis, dodgy line call from the other guy. What are you going to think about? How are you going to think about your opponent? Or your teammate just never passes to you, always messes up. How are you going to think about him? Are you going to give your thoughts over to God every minute of every day? Your words? How can you offer your words to God? What you say. When you speak to your teammates, are you going to encourage them, put them down? When you speak about your teammates to other people, will you offer your words to God all of the time? Your actions, your bodies, what you actually do when you're out there on the pitch. How are you going to offer your bodies to God every minute of every day? And what's great this week, and hopefully you'll do it every single morning, halfway through your first sport, halfway through your session, you'll get a break, take some water, remember what the manager said. But really important, it's not just a water break to get water on board. A great chance then to think about what does that mean for me in my sport, specific, when I'm in rugby, Not just sport in general, but rugby. What? Offer my bodies when I'm in the scrum? I've got to give it all to God then? In tennis, in hockey, athletics, how do I offer my body there? Please do take those time. And coaches, challenge, use those times to think through, what does it mean to offer my bodies at those times? So then, Bangy, as we finish, 2 things left. Offer your bodies, all of yourself, all of the time, yet remember your motivation. Every morning we're going to come back. Remember your motivation, God's mercy. Why do we do it? All in view of everything that God has done for us. There's a great old hymn, I really like it. Old hymn called When I Survey the Wondrous Cross. You might remember it, you might have sung it yourself. The last verse of that hymn really sums up what Paul is saying here. Here's what it says. The song goes, were the whole realm of nature mine, that were an offering far too small. Were the whole realm of nature mine, that's an offering far too small. Love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my all. Love so amazing demands everything that I've got. Offer everything I've got all of the time.